everybody. So I'm just gonna say shout out to Eric the Bunks because that dude does some incredible work on making the grifters BS really just sit on their own face. And I wanted to just kind of make this video because one, I enjoy doing these type of videos, not to cause any kind of war, but just to point out the fact that the grifting on that side of YouTube has gotten really disgusting over the years, and it's very much a super toxically conservative right winged way of calling themselves reviewing movies. And they don't even really review movies, they just kind of recap the plot and then kind of say how trash it is. But Ryan Cannell is one of those guys where I just cannot stomach the racism from him in any way, shape, or form. And this isn't even me putting on an act. I've made videos about the grifters before on multiple occasions, but this one takes the cake because when the Odyssey came out, because as we know, the Odyssey got these dudes moving so desperately because they couldn't take down Christopher Nolan, one of the most beloved, reliable, well put together directors of our generation. Like, we'll never have another Christopher Nolan. And that sounds a little contrary, but it just is what it is, especially if like we're at the pretty much end stage of actual filmmaking. If Matt Damon said what he said and that's true, then Christopher Nolan is the only one of his kind. And we're never going to get another Christopher Nolan after this point, especially if AI takes over and ends up doing that thing that the strikes were about, or anything else under that umbrella. What can we do? So Christopher Nolan is like the last real movie director we have, and he's probably the only director out right now that can sell a movie based off his name. Most people don't know what director directed what movie, but you see Christopher Nolan's name and people go to his theaters. Now, that being said, I'm going back into Ryan Kynal because his thing about the Odyssey disgusts me to no return. They and the grifters all together, and he has made videos about Helen of Troy probably worse than the others. He had to mention Helen of Troy being black, and he very emphasized the word black in his video when he was talking about the Odyssey. And he had to pretty much admit that all the grifting and all the toxicity around the Odyssey for the last 4 months didn't work. The audience said, screw you, small percenters. We're going to go see Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and people love it. It is a box office success before even being a success. Ain't that crazy? The movie opened at $263 million its opening weekend, and then proceeded on Monday to make 18 million. Then made another 20 million on Tuesday. Then another 18 million on Wednesday. I don't know how much it made Thursday. That number hasn't come up. But either way, the Odyssey has literally passed $320 million, I believe, since it's open, and it hasn't even been out a full week yet. Well, no, it has been out a full week, but even still, it has done. It made 17 million on Thursday. I just found out. So the Odyssey is at 342 million already, and it's got pretty much no competition this weekend. So the movie's pretty much going to be successful, and I don't think Spider-Man is going to affect it that much because the Odyssey has the IMAX theaters that Spider-Man doesn't have. Spider-Man doesn't have IMAX here in North America, but it does have IMAX overseas. Spider-Man still has Dolby. Spider-Man still has ScreenX, which it was shot specifically for. So I don't think that Spider-Man is going to hurt the Odyssey like they've been trying to say. Notice how they didn't really talk any trash about Spider-Man because they spent way too much time thrashing the Odyssey, and how Black Helen of Troy is just so crazy, and how we was Helen of Troy and crap, even though it's a mythological thing. And also, just to harp on the racism a little more, of how you guys treated Elliot Page. Like, you guys just for some reason it's always the black characters that you guys mention, or the fact that there's an Indian person playing Euphilus. Like, those names are crazy. Either way, there was a lot of racism around that, a lot of race, but you mostly focused on the black woman and the trans person. And in all of their commentary, especially Ryan Kynal, you are probably, I think he's more racist than the drinker and neurotic, and just the way he demeans people for their race in a lot of his videos is just outlandishly crazy. But don't worry, because this is pretty much their reviews of the Odyssey, and now it's pretty much Ryan Kinel going, "Oh, the Odyssey is not gonna. It's gonna probably need to make $1 billion." They always say $1 billion as like a round number, like they don't actually care. You know what I mean? Like they know the movie's not doesn't need to make $1 billion to break even, and it doesn't need to make $1 billion to be considered successful. Like honestly, if the Odyssey makes about 800 million, 850 million, it's good. It's good. If it makes 900 million, it's even better. If it makes $1 billion, which I'm speculating that it could because they've actually extended its IMAX time and theater release because it's in high demand and tickets are selling out time in advance, which proves you guys wrong. And that's why you guys are trying so desperately to say how bad the movie is, even though multiple people say it's great. I mean, not everyone has to like the movie, but you guys have really shot yourselves in the foot. And it also just goes to show that you guys really don't have that much influence. Yes, did you guys have influence to hurt Supergirl? I definitely believe that. I definitely believe you guys use sexism and a lot of like fragility issues to hurt Supergirl. That's exactly what happened. You won. You beat that one. I'll give y'all that one. But when it came to taking out the Odyssey, y'all niggas lost. Y'all lost. And I'm gonna get into more of this in a heartbeat, but the racism, like y'all really just are hurt about the Odyssey now. Y'all were so gung ho about the Odyssey being trash and it was a woke DEI propaganda thing or whatever. I'm not even like I'm an independent. I'm not even a liberal. I'm independent. I don't like the Demis or the Republicans, but you guys are exactly the group of people of why I can never be a Republican because or a right wing person because you guys are so disgustingly arrogant. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I'm gonna move on from Ryan Kinel because I'm gonna have a video that's focused on him specifically at some point. But Ryan Kinel is a racist. Do not ever let him try to tell you that he's not, or he's got some perfect reason as to why. He is I think he's more openly racist than like Critical Drinker or Nerdrotic or Yellow Flash. Yellow Flash disgusts me as well. But this side of YouTube is just it needs to be stopped to some degree. Now, Nerdrotic's review of the Odyssey was a little bit more pretentious, but not nowhere near as racially charged. I will give him that. He did mention certain things that he'd been harping on for 4 months, and his racism towards the movie was pretty much the whole she's black and Helena Troy's supposed to be white. And if you guys saw my last video about the Grifters loving their own racism, him and the drinker were on Pierce Morgan's show. And he barely spoke, but when he did speak, it was just kind of like, yeah, as I suspected, you're gonna let the drinker do everything for you. But in another sense, I never got this dude because, like, bruh, I'm pretty sure Nerdrotic's like 50 something. I'm pretty sure he's like in his 50s, and he first time I came into Nerdrotic, he was talking trash about like Rachel Zegler, who's like half his age, if not more than half his age. Same with the way he tore Millie Alcock through the ground with the other guys, and now it's Lupita Nyong'o, and she's Helen of Detroit, and she's black, and she would never have men sail ships for her. And the fact that you guys like he tried to treat the Odyssey as like this thing that everyone should follow. And my problem with that is Helen of Troy is barely in the Odyssey. And as a matter of fact, Helen of Troy is about as much in this movie as she is in the Odyssey, the book, the epic, I should say. But for some reason, you guys were like, this movie's bad because she's in it. It's going to be bad because she's in it. They're trying to make a statement. The Academy Awards have a DEI rule that you have to have people of color in the film. Is that a third? So now Christopher Nolan, who's never followed any kind of Academy rules or anything like that, just put a black person in there for an award. Christopher Nolan literally just won. He landslid the Oscars 2024 because and it was a 95% white cast, maybe a 99% white cast, and that movie swept the Oscars. So where'd that DEI stuff come from? And of course, their followers listen to them and just treat these guys like they got everything to say because they're saying the right wing thing. And that doesn't really work if you're not making any sense or if it's not even true. And one of the things that I have an issue with Nerdrotic is that, like, bro, how old are you, cuz? How old are you, cuz? Like, I look at a lot of these people and I'm just like, you guys have no life. You guys have clearly never talked to a woman. You guys have never shook hands with a woman, embraced a woman. Like, I like, even in real life for me, I can be a little bit like, I know how y'all act, but I still talk to women. I still like embracing physical touch with them. I still, and like, you know what I'm saying? I, try to talk to women when I'm out, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bother me to do these things. But you guys, like, you guys sit in your rooms on your microphones and you guys just say some of the most toxically sexist, toxically toxic things that's racially. And it's like, what did you guys go through that you guys just don't like women or people of color at all? Like, what did you guys like go through in life that you guys genuinely just don't like people of color? I remember certain thing. It's insane to me that like Nerdrotic in his review just tried to make it seem like the Odyssey either dragged too long or the armors were dumb or he had to come up with anything he could come up with to say the Odyssey was bad. Ryan Kino had to do it, Nerdrotic had to do it, and the Drinker had to do it. They had to all sit here and make up any kind of answer they could come up with to make the movie sound bad just so their followers can say you guys were right. But those guys who listen to these guys don't go see the movies if these dudes tell them that they don't like it. And I genuinely think that did hurt Supergirl in a way, but I definitely think they've affected some other movies because of this. And that is one of my biggest things about these guys who are like, oh, we want movies to be good again. We want movies to be great like they were then. But you guys are actively killing the movie industry, or you guys are trying to. So, yeah, and Nerdrotic, he just could not get over the fact of a lot of these things. And I don't understand why Christopher Nolan, all of a sudden, you guys just can't stand Christopher Nolan out of the blue. But y'all need to be studying in a lab somewhere because at the end of the day, it just it just is sad. And I genuinely think Nerdrotic is very sexist, like the actual sexist, not just because he says things. I think he's actually sexist. But I also think Nerdrotic might be racist too. No, not even might. He is racist. He is indeed racist because again, he spent 4 months. He's also the person I believe who created a AI picture of Black Snape, who he had on a broomstick doing a drive by because he was a black snake. So they pretty much harp on stereotypes, and that's where my issue comes in. Then also the fact that that one guy on X created that AI voiceover thing of Helena Troy getting pulled away, and she mentioned the whole, oh, I got to get my nails done. I tried to get Kool Aid with food stamps, and this guy's like, hey, critical drinker and nerdrotic, look what I made. It's like, so you guys willingly lead the charge with this shit, and you guys are just like, yeah, but whatever. So yeah, you're racist in that regard, just because. And the Odyssey proved you wrong as well because it opened up wonderfully. It is doing good numbers. Christopher Nolan is still that bull for real, and he is going to have a third movie. He's going to have another movie in 3 years because that's just Nolan's time frame. 3 years, he drops a movie. 3 years, he drops a movie. It does well. 3 years, he drops a movie. He has not dropped a film in 3 years, I believe, since Interstellar. So Interstellar was 2014, Dunkirk was 2017, Tenet was 2020, Oppenheimer was 2023, and now The Odyssey is 2026. So 2029, before the end of the decade, we will have another Christopher Nolan film in the books. So I'm sorry, but you lost this one. You couldn't take on Christopher Nolan or Roddick. Your racism, sexism, and grifting just did not get you where you thought it would. Probably the most hurt person about the success of this movie after he finally released his dreaded review of The Odyssey, where he just tackles the plot of the film and doesn't really talk about it. And He doesn't really give us perspective. He does admit that it's a well shot, well put together film because it is. It's shot beautifully. And complained about how the islands don't really look different, even though every landscape looks different. Every practical set looks great. Every frame is beautiful. The music is incredible. The acting is great. Anne Hathaway is my go to for please give her an Oscar nom, even if she doesn't win. But he just had to talk so much trash about it, talking about Zendaya just only being on screen, talking about the fact that like he kind of bitched out because he wanted to use Helen of Troy and Sinan as talking points for his video, but he kind of glosses over them being in it because he knows there's no point because they're barely in it. So I guess that was his way of saying he's wrong and he's a bit of a contrarian and now he has to pull back on it. And the fact that even when I mentioned Nerdrotic being on Piers Morgan, he was on there with them and he was doing most of the talking and he was doing all that. Oh, well, we're talking about the black castings and this, that, and the third, because back then, on a geographical level, that doesn't make any sense, even though you're an idiot, because in the book, Poseidon goes, I've said this before, Poseidon goes to Ethiopia to talk to Ethiopians. And guess what Ethiopians are? They're black people. So, mm, read that one and weep. And also, Greece does have some fairly dark skinned people. Maybe not all of them. And some of them are a little more olive skinned than dark, but they're not white, not a bunch of white people. They're Greek people. And my biggest complaint is that you still had to kind of bring up something to make the movie sound bad, or you had to come up with something to make Christopher Nolan look like the bad guy for even making this kind of film. And it just doesn't work when the movie is a well received, well viewed, well received movie. You just can't do any of that anymore. And I think they're just trying to cope with the fact that they were wrong and that they lost and that he's trying to say all these things. It just didn't work, bro. You should have just been honest. And he said he thought the movie was dull. He was bored the whole time. Yeah, because let's be honest, any movie that stars a white guy and it does a bunch of car explosions or anything like that, yeah, you guys would tend to say it's pretty not good. I mean, he does like Jaws, he does like The Whale, but I mean, at the end of the day, that doesn't fix his issue. That the fact that like you spent 4 months talking trash about Zendaya, saying her name wrong, you and Nerdrotic saying Lupita Nyong'o's name wrong, and it just is not okay. And yes, Will, you are a racist too, because you spent all that time harping on the race of the person and trying to make it seem like Lupita Nyong'o is not a good actress when she's a phenomenal actress, a very talented actress. And yes, Lupita Nyong'o is a beautiful woman. The only reason why y'all say the stuff that y'all are saying is because she's a darker skinned woman. And that's just messed up. Skin color, beauty standard prejudice in 2026. Come on, man. That's low. That's real low. And then you guys are just so upset. You guys can't even. And then when he was on Pierce Morgan and they were kind of closing out the 45-minute show, and he had to throw in, "Oh, it's not going to profit. It's not going to make a profit. It's not. There's no way it's going to profit." And I'm like, you just had to be an asshole. You just had to be an asshole for the last 3 seconds that you could, instead of just, you know what, we'll see when the movie comes out. Nope, you had to make your racist fans happy. But the thing about the Piers Morgan show is that your group chat and your friends and your followers can't comment on Piers Morgan's show. And I think that's probably why he kind of kept it in the can a little bit and tried to make it like, oh, I complained about John Wayne. That was 50 years ago. I can't do anything about that now. Oh, no, you can't do anything about John Wayne, but you could do something about Wuthering Heights, which I also made a video on. And you said nothing. You said nothing. None of you grifters did. So it just goes to show your racism is only a problem when it's a black person or when it's a person of color in general. I've seen you guys complain about Asian people. They say like Asian Isaac Newton. which, yeah, in reality, that's a historical person. That really doesn't make any sense. But the Odyssey is a mythological story that isn't real. So you could do a black version of the Odyssey and it would still be the Odyssey. It's just everyone's black. I'm not saying I'd want that. I honestly want more original black stories. But if we were going to be honest, the Odyssey is in Greece, and there are people of color in Greece. Greece isn't that far from a lot of other countries where people of color reside, even if you guys think that everyone in every freaking medium ever told in history is a white person, even though that's not the case. But still, I think you guys should just accept the L. Maybe that's what all these videos are this week. You guys are just like, look, we took the L, we lost. We can't take down Christopher Nolan. We're not going to try this again. We realize we can't do it. The man's too talented. The man's too reliable. The man's too damn actually good at what he does when it comes to making film. So I think you guys should just learn from your mistakes, actually be those masculine men you guys claim to be, and actually just take your L, learn from it, because you guys messed up big time. You probably had a bigger chance taking down Spider Man than you did Christopher Nolan. You guys were really going for the gold with that one. And you guys need to humble yourselves and understand that people of color are not bad people. People of color are genuinely nice people, just like white people can be. And I think that you guys have just done a lot of racist rage baiting that has gotten you actually nowhere. In fact, I think your side of YouTube is actually dying. I don't think you guys get the views you otherwise used to get years ago. And that's a good thing. I think the audience has spoken. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is great. It's worth spending money for. It's worth getting concessions. It's worth the $200 I'm going to spend on this movie trip. Basically, what people are saying. And you guys are just going to have to hold this L. You guys are so hurt. It kills you guys. That's why you guys have to keep saying the word $1 billion, because if it doesn't hit that threshold, then you guys can move the goalpost to, oh, it's a flop. It's a flop, man. The movie was never supposed to make it. It was never supposed to do good. And if we told you because it didn't make $1 billion, because when they say the word a billion, it gives it a milestone that most movies that have come out have never done. I think it's like what 30-ish movies have made it to the $1 billion club out of millions on top of millions of movies that have been made. Come on now. Come on. Stop playing with me, yo. So yeah, they're trying to still trying to like get a little bit of a residual bullet in there, and it's just not going to work. It's just not working. And I think now what they're going to do after the Odyssey cleans house for another 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to try to direct all their attention to like Avengers Doomsday. They're going to spend months tearing Doomsday through the mud, tearing Doomsday through the floor, trying to ruin the Russo brothers. And I just know it's coming soon. So be on the lookout for those videos, guys, because that's going to be a problem. So with that being said, I'm going to sign off. I'm actually really exhausted. Thank you guys for listening. I will see you guys on the next one. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.